Welcome to the Passion and Purpose Unleashed interview series. My name is Belinda Haywood and I'm a practicing herbalist, nutritionist, health and results coach, psychic energy healer, life purpose astrologer, and human design and gene keys student. In this series, I'm talking with guest speakers who themselves are aligned with their passion and purpose, and part of their work, part of their legacy is supporting others to also really cultivate that passion and purpose. My first guest is Becca Francis, a human design visionary, entrepreneur, coach, teacher, and CEO of her own human design online education company. And Becca is my human design and gene keys mentor and teacher. So Becca, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, me too. Me too. I'm very grateful that you're here. So, of course, speaking of passion, what are you passionate about when it comes to supporting other entrepreneurs?
Great question. So, yeah, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's so wonderful to meet you in this different environment, in this different dynamic. Like now you're in charge and you're asking the questions, and it's really good. It's really interesting.
Different dynamic. Yeah.
So I think the main thing I'm passionate about, or I know, is kind of being transparent about being an entrepreneur and having your own business. Because what I found, I tried for about 10 years to start my own business before I found human design, and nothing worked. And I spent years blaming myself and thinking everyone else can do it but me. There's something wrong with me. That kind of life I want, that life of freedom and working from home, is just for other people. And once I got to know my human design and my gene keys more, I understood that my zone of genius is called intimacy. So it's about being really honest and transparent about my life. And as a 6'2", teaching from my experience. And I take people behind the scenes a lot. I'm a generator. So I take people behind the scenes of my business in an effort to be really transparent so that people don't feel so alone in business. Because we've all had times where, I know I have, where I've been laid on the floor in tears at the beginning of a launch, where I think everything's going to fall to pieces, or I've had a slow month. And those are the times that we really need to dig so deep and keep putting one foot in front of the other. And if we can see particularly other women out there saying, yeah, sometimes it's really hard, but I had this experience, I had these slow months, and then all of a sudden everything kind of accelerated, I think is so powerful, because you don't feel alone. And understanding business is cyclical. You know, we're conditioned to think it goes like this, but having other people say, no, it does go in cycles, and that's okay. That's fine. It doesn't mean anything about your success or otherwise. So that's what I'm so passionate about, is just helping other women see that, or kind of seeing behind the scenes of what it really looks like to run a business.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, because I think you're right. It's easy to sort of look at others online and in this space, and to jump to the conclusion quite naturally when we see, you know, everything going well and 100K months and this, that, and the other. So I think that's really important actually to have that transparency and say that it's okay. You know, it's not all, you know, roses, and there's times where you will doubt yourself, and there's time, as you said, that there's cyclical nature of anything, there's cyclical nature of nature itself. So no, I love that you're all about that. And I know you sort of shared that you're doing that with one of the upcoming launches, sort of behind the scenes, so to speak, so people can see what really does happen and what, you know, a launch does entail for us entrepreneurs. So such good work. So now, just with human design, so as we said, I know that has, you know, shifted a lot for you in terms of your life purpose and your life work. How did that happen? Because I know you're obviously in the corporate world, and you know, so when did you first come across, I guess, human design? And how did that kind of really start to shift everything for you?
So I'd always known kind of at some level, or felt at some level, that I was intuitive, but I didn't kind of know what to do with it or break into that world. Psychic work and mediumship always fascinated me. I was always drawn to that. But I ended up in a very, very corporate job, and in a situation with a lot of toxic co-workers, a lot of toxic women. And like I said, I tried for about 10 years, all sorts of different businesses. I tried selling pet products, fitness products, jewelry, wedding planning, all sorts of things. And they kind of, some of them were kind of successful, but then the energy just kind of dissipated because I didn't understand my energy. I didn't trust myself. I'd always been told that I was too emotional, I was too sensitive, I was too this, I was too that. So I didn't trust myself. And I started doing some, in an effort to leave my job, I started doing some web design for a spiritual entrepreneur group called Shivolve. And as I remember driving down the road one day, listening to one of their masterminds, and Megan, who runs Shivolve, mentioned human design. And I'd never heard of it, but it was familiar to me. It was very strange. The term was familiar. And I thought, and I heard it, and I honestly, Belinda, I rolled my eyes and thought, I don't need something else new to learn. Like, there's so many modalities. I was like, oh, what is that? This new age? Like, I'll be totally honest. And then when the pandemic hit, I joined a mastermind, a spiritual CEO mastermind. And one of the speakers there, Eden Carpenter, was a human design expert. So I thought, oh, there's that human design thing again. So now I know what I know as a generator, it was coming up for me to respond to, appearing in my external environment. And I did tiny bit of research before the session, and I couldn't understand a thing. Like, I brought up my chart and Jovian archive, and I literally snapped my laptop shut and walked away. I thought, there is no way I will ever be able to understand that. And so she did this session, and she said, she looked at my chart and she said, there's so much activation in this area. I've never seen this much activation in like the sacral and these areas. And that kind of piqued my interest because, you know, I was like, oh, that's interesting. And after the session, I didn't really think any more about it. But then a few days later, I woke up one day and became obsessed with human design in a very, very generator way, very focused, very obsessed. I bought online courses. I spent weekends just studying and making notes. My husband was saying, what are you doing? And I'm like, I can't explain this to you. I still can't explain what I do. And from there, things just snowballed because I started to understand myself, and I understood that I wasn't wrong. I wasn't to this or to that. I was perfectly designed to respond in the way I did. I understood I was emotionally defined. So my emotions, I'm very connected to them. That's how I make decisions. And I looked at my corporate job, and my immediate manager above me always used to say to me, you're too emotional. Take the emotion out of your decisions as a manager, which now I'm like, no wonder it felt so awful to be there, because I can't make a decision without that emotional wave.
You're literally going against your human design. Yeah,
exactly. So it literally started to shift the ground beneath me. Everything in my life started to change. And I know that sounds like a cliche, and when I hear that, I kind of go, I've heard that before, but it literally did. Everything shifted and changed. And I found human design in the March. And by the September, I went part-time in my job, and by November, I'd left to do my human design business. And that was nearly 2 years ago. So, yeah.
Wow. And I mean, I know you have various offerings, like you work with people in different capacities. So you've got the one-to-one, you've got, you know, group programs that you do, you've got online programs, obviously you've got the certification as well, like the mastery course, sorry, the 9-month course. So, you know, utilizing human design, then I know you do gene keys as well, which we'll come to shortly, but utilizing human design, how do you work with someone with human design to help them to kind of align with, well, what is it that actually lights them up and how they can really tap into and leverage that uniqueness?
So the way that I approach it is, it's not a dogma. It's not something I come to someone with and say, this is the only way, this is how you operate, this is, you know, you must follow this to the letter. I keep a lightness about it. I have an intention to be light about it and to say, look, this is really fascinating. This is just another way that you can start to trust yourself. Again, a phrase which I think is overused, like alignment, trust yourself, authentic. These words are so prevalent that they kind of lose their meaning. But I introduce it in a way that is really accessible.
Yeah.
And I have the intention not to overwhelm people with it. I mean, it's different if we're doing something like human design mastery, where we're going deeply into it so that you
Yes.
can coach it and teach it.
Yeah.
But if I'm doing a reading, it's up to me. Part of my caring for my client and my duty of care is to pull out the most relevant parts
Yes.
of their chart and to give them tools to use it, actual tools. So rather than it being 90 minutes of, oh, here's some fun facts about you, isn't this interesting, to no, this is how you can really lean into your energy. This is how you can trust yourself. This is how you can make decisions in a way that feels really good to you. So I present it in that way. I keep it light. I talk about it being just another tool that we can use. And it's part of my coaching, but it's not the only way that I coach someone. But I see it as kind of keys into their energy. You know, look, we were talking about the arrows today. You know, these are ways that you can kind of avenues into somebody's energy so that you can serve them, so that you can help them. So I don't want to overwhelm people. I want to make it a process that they can use every day. And I make it very simple. In the beginning, we just talk about type and strategy and signature. So when I first start working with someone, if they're a generator, for example, I would say, okay, let's make this really simple. What I want you to do is recognize the times in your day when you feel your signature of satisfaction, no matter how small they are. I kind of challenge them to find the smaller and smaller and smaller times. And then I say, when you feel it, stop, feel it, say to the universe, I feel satisfied. More of this, please. I love this. Let's expand on this. I want to feel more of this in my day. And start like that in a very, very accessible way. My intention is never to be a guru or a okay, well, you have to pay me X amount of money, then I will give you all these secrets about yourself. Having said that, I do believe that work like human design should be an equal energetic exchange.
Yeah.
And it is work that we put a lot of time and money into learning and understanding. But it really is up to us as coaches and teachers and readers to curate the information in a way that doesn't overload our client and doesn't drain us as well. That's kind of my main focus.
Yeah, no, that's so important. And you touched on so many important things there, but I think you're right. And I think that's what's my experience with it. It was like I had a session, it was like 2 hours, and it was so overwhelming that it was like, this is really interesting, but what do I actually do with it? So as you said, it's great that you kind of simplify it in ways and just take out some key elements and some tangible tools that people can actually use day to day to start actually living it and embodying it. And as you said, even, I mean, you know, just understanding, you know, your type, your authority and the signature, you're right. I mean, that's a massive chunk of it anyway, as we know. So if people can really start to take that, understand it, start to work with it, start to embody it, that, you know, you're mostly there. I mean, as we know, isn't that like something like 75% of it or something? They say.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? So now, Gene Keys. So I know that's something else that you're very passionate about, and you know, obviously another very transformative modality. So, and I know you use that in terms of you actually, you know, coach others with it and you teach that as well. So how does that, you know, help unlock someone's life's work, their life's purpose, so to speak, you know? Yeah.
So I see the human design chart as kind of this masculine framework, this kind of X-ray of someone's energy. And with the gene keys, we take some of those energies and look at them at a deeper level. So we take some of the gate energies and we talk about how is this expressed for you. So let's take my 6-2 is going, make it simple. Give them a tool. So let's take the vocation sphere in the prosperity sequence. So the vocation sphere, or gate, sphere is just another word for gate in the human design chart. It shows us what our biggest challenge is. And it also shows us our zone of genius. So if I'm coaching somebody in business in Gene Keys, that's kind of where I start. Because with Gene Keys, it's even more incumbent upon us as a coach or a teacher to curate the information, because it's so powerful that if you try, and I remember I did a reading once and I I went through all the spheres of all the sequences. I don't know how I did it. I don't know how my clients sat through it, but we really need to curate this information.
Yeah.
So if we take the vocation gate, that's our unconscious Mars. And that can immediately show us what is the biggest thing that you struggle with. And this is also an unconscious energy. It's in the unconscious part of our chart. So we may not even realize that that's our struggle. So for me, my biggest struggle, part of the expression of it, the biggest struggle is exclusion. Like the main gate is called dishonesty, but one of the expressions of it is exclusion. And when I saw that, it was like, the phrase being hit by a bus is coming to me. I know that doesn't sound very spiritual, but that's kind of how it felt. It was this is what's been happening in your life. It kind of shows you a mirror. And sometimes you don't want to see it. Gene keys can be confronting. It really can. But I think that's why it's so powerful. That's why you need someone who knows what they're doing to guide you through it. So my shadow was exclusion. And what I'd noticed when I read the definition was all of these toxic relationships I'd had with women in the workplace. Because those had happened, what I was doing was excluding myself from situations that could be beneficial to me to expand those relationships before they could exclude me.
Wow.
And it's this way of protecting myself. And I was literally kind of looked around and thought, who's watching? Like, this is literally inside my head. What is going on? And
exactly.
well, and that was one of the pivotal things that helped me shift things, to start welcoming women into my life and being able to trust them and being able to learn from them and understanding how much wisdom we have. And I just couldn't see that before. So we look at the shadow, and then we look at the gift level. So it's expressed in 3 levels, but I focus on the shadow and the gift normally. The gift is your zone of genius. The gift is where you can really help people at a deep level in your programs. So for me, it's intimacy. I have this need to be very honest about how human design and gene keys works in my day-to-day life, how it affects my intimate relationships. And I think when I'm teaching, I have a tendency to say, oh, I'm sorry, I keep referring to myself, but I'm a 6/2. I teach through experience and intimacy. And it's really the only way I can teach, by saying, look, this is how it feels for me. How does it feel for you? And your zone of genius is what people feel from you in your containers that you don't necessarily talk about in your marketing. It's like this extra layer of this extra part of your energy that they get access to when they work closely with you, that they maybe wouldn't otherwise get access to. So just from that's a tiny bit of gene keys that can really help to unlock your energy at a deeper level. And working with gene keys is very much, it's not so much doing, whereas with human design, you learn about it and you do, you put your strategy into action, you spend time in your signature. Gene keys is very, very different. It's a contemplation. It's letting it drift in and out of your mind. It's having this curiosity about your challenges and how you can move through them and what's the theme that keeps showing up. But just to finish off that, just to round out that answer, the more I coach with gene keys, the more I understand that most of the shadow frequencies are connected to fear and the gift frequencies are connected to love. It's quite a simple message, just with a lot of kind of complexities to get to that, if you like, but it is really quite simple at its core.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I'd had that explained to me too, that it was almost like, human design is kind of the masculine, the structure, whereas, the gene keys is more of the feminine energy, the more contemplative. And it does make sense, because as we said, when you look at it at a glance, as with human design, it can be a bit overwhelming too, because you can think, hang on, that doesn't actually make sense. And it's only sometimes because we hear a word and we take it quite literally from how we're conditioned to think of that word. And then you're right, when you actually look at it and contemplate it, which, I mean, I've got the book here, which is fantastic, isn't it? I think it's such a good resource to have. And, and it is something that obviously you're not going to read cover to cover. It's something designed to, well, have a look at this particular sphere and this particular, and contemplate it. But you're right. Sometimes you look at the word and you're like, hang on, but then you read it and you're like, oh, that makes sense. I can see how that's playing out, and I can see how I'm defaulting to that. Because I know for me there was one that was in my, I think it was the evolution sphere, which was the shadow was half-heartedness and the gift is commitment. And I mean, for me that explained a lot, because I thought I do default to half-heartedness a lot, and I can see, and that's what something I'm bringing more and more into my day-to-day, and in what I help others with, the commitment, actually being all in. So, I think it's so important. And I mean, so I agree. It's so enlightening. And I think, as you touched on and you were saying earlier, it's like, it just helps you to understand yourself more, to understand yourself, and how it gives you a permission slip almost, just to really just be who you are, be your authentic self, be your unique self, and really embrace that. And
Exactly.
I love it. So
Exactly.
and just
Something that sounds that we all want to do, but we've been so conditioned out of it
correct.
that
Yeah.
we don't know who we are. It's very hard to be yourself if you don't know who you are, or you feel that yourself is not enough, or that you should hide it away, or for whatever reason.
True.
I have a lot of abstract energy in my chart, so I don't make logical decisions. But when I was younger, I was taught that was a bad thing. You have to think things through and be logical, and do a pros and cons list. That's not how my energy works. I don't really apply logic. Doesn't make sense to me, so I don't really apply it to a lot of my decisions. And just that is very freeing.
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely. Yeah, no, it does. It is, as I said, it is like that permission slip. And, I think for us to understand ourselves in a whole different level, and just then, be able to say, well, this is me. This is my design.
Yeah.
This is the way I am. And maybe it's different from you, and that's okay, because
Yeah.
that's what makes the world the way it is.
Mm.
So no, I love it. So just with that, I guess, so obviously you've been working with a lot of people in the last few years in terms of, whether, as we said, it's one-to-one or programs and things like that. But do you have, one or two, I guess, client success stories that really stand out for you, where someone's like taken the information, they've run with it, and they've just had this huge night and day transformation? Or maybe it's more subtle than that, but it's just something that stands out for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I just got the biggest chill right throughout my body.
Oh.
There are a couple. The one that stands out first is I run a course called Money Cartography, where we look at how to unlock the abundance that's already within you. So we look at human design, we look at gene keys, we look at talking to spirit, we look at ancestral stories, and all of that good stuff. And the first time I ran it, we were maybe 3 weeks in, and one of the students put in the Facebook group, she wrote this post, and it just blew me away. It made me cry, actually. She said, I've just manifested my dream home. I've manifested the money for it. Here it is. Here's a picture of it. It's by the sea. It's this, it's that. We never, ever thought we'd be able to afford anything like this. Just doing this work the first few weeks has meant that my income has jumped dramatically. Not only that, I've been able to step back a bit from my business and bring in help. It was one of those responses that you just dream about as a coach, holding space for people. And it just makes me cry now. It was such a huge transformation for her, and such a validation for me that this course really does make changes in people's lives. So that was one of them. And I think the other one that's very personal to me is there was somebody that I worked with quite a few years ago. She's quite a bit younger than me, but we worked in a couple of places together, and we were always very much on the same page. When I first learned human design, hers was the first reading I ever did. So I did a free reading for her, and she was very unhappy in her job, very unhappy. And she messaged me and she's not even in my paid programs either. She messaged me about 4 weeks ago, just out of the blue, and she said, God damn it, woman, this is incredible. I have just handed in my notice. My side business, I've just got these 2 huge clients. I am leaving. I don't know what you teach or how you teach it, but I am leaving my job. And that, for me, because I know how unhappy I was, I know how unhappy she was, is why I do what I do. Just to get that message, just on a random Tuesday lunchtime, is it's beyond satisfying.
Yeah.
It was just so thrilling because I know how much it meant to her. So I think those are the two main standouts.
No, I love that. Yeah. And I know, amazing. So, and now just, do you have any pearls of wisdom or anything that, or processes or anything in your back pocket that you like to just pull out? You know, is there anything that you can share with our audience today?
I think the main thing, which we were just talking about this morning, is regardless of what modality you use or you resonate with, the most important thing is your intuition, your gut feeling, because that's the foundation for everything. And again, something that we've been conditioned out of. And I think if we're going to make the changes that we want to in the years to come, and the changes that we see around us that need to happen, it's being reconnected to whatever you call it, whether it's the universe, source, God, the divine, whatever it is, connecting to that on a daily basis and trusting it, and trusting yourself to run your life and your business with that intuition before anything else is the most important thing. Regardless. And then we can lay human design over it and say, okay, well, you know, you're emotionally defined, or for you, you know, you make decisions like this. How can we help you make big decisions? There's always more support. But for me, I'm understanding more and more that connection to our gut, our connection to our intuition is the foundation of everything else.
Yes, so important. And I think that was one of the things that really appealed to me with human design initially. It was like encouraging us to go inwards and listen to ourselves, listen, you know, and it's not something that any of us were really taught. We were taught to go outside of ourselves, you know, go outside ourselves for our parents' validation, you know, for teachers, for bosses, for everything else. So it's not something that is very natural to us. And well, it sounds ironic because it is actually a natural thing, but it doesn't feel that way for a lot of us. It's almost like, well, how do I be intuitive? You tell me how, and you tell me the process, and I'll do it. And it's like, well, it's almost taking that aside and just, you know, I mean, I'm quite intuitive myself, and it's something people come to me for intuitive sessions or psychic sessions. And, you know, the more and more that we can get people to, as you said, like listen to themselves, trust themselves, and also act on it, you know, that's important too. It's all well and good to, you know, get a download or an intuitive hit, but if you're never acting on it, you know, then you're never actually going to see the magic that could potentially unfold. So, so one more question I just want to ask you before we leave. So imagine now you're 85 years old, you're being interviewed about your life's work. It's like that, you know, this is your life kind of moment. So tell me, what impact is on your heart that you'd like to be known by or for?
That is a big question.
It sure is.
What I'm taken to is actually part of my human design, which we haven't touched on, which is my format channel 360. So the format channels in the chart are very powerful. They override everything else. They're the start of the circuitry. So for me, this channel of mutation means that I have to understand and accept that people that come into my energy are transformed. I have to hold them in that and not shy away and say, oh no, but it's just because I did this and that. No. This is what happens. I know this is what happens in my energy. So when I'm 85 and I'm probably still reading human design charts or whatever I'm doing, being able to look back and say, those people I came into contact with had specific transformations, had actual tangible ways that their lives changed. Like with my client who manifested a dream house, or my client who started her own business. And I think the other thing is knowing that I had a part in setting people up for what's coming. So I talk a lot about the cross of the sleeping phoenix. It's really important to me to talk about global energies. I'm a 6, so that big energy, that global view fascinates me. And if I can help people, I was going to say in some small way, but I'm not going to kind of provide a disclaimer. If I can help people understand what's coming so that they can raise their children in a way that will set their children up for this new paradigm that we're moving into, that's what would make me feel satisfied, which is my signature. I'd feel, creating transformations and helping set people up in a really powerful way, and helping them understand that they don't have to rely on external authority. Because as soon as we rely on external authority, that's when we can be manipulated. But when we rely on internal authority, that's when real change happens. So 2 or 3 answers to that question. I think.
Perfect. No, I love that. And I think, so good, as we said. And I know, the format channels are huge, and having that sort of ability to hold that space and be part of people's transformation is just, that's huge. And as you said, preparing people for the paradigm shift, because, you're right. I mean, the more that people are almost aware and kind of can prepare on some level and can do the work, and, because people that are asleep, so to speak, it's going to be uncomfortable. And I mean, it probably already is a lot of, discomfort that's being experienced by a lot of people who are resistant to embracing, changes that's happening. So, excellent. So thank you so much, Becca. And we definitely leave your links below so people can follow you or find out a little bit more about you and your work. So, thank you. And I'm sure I'll have you on down the track for more work that you're doing in the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I had a great time. Thanks, Belinda.
Excellent. Oh, good. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Bye. Bye.